Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
Star Trek podcast.
Who knows where I'll end up? But I'm not afraid to face it alone anymore.
Interesting. I never felt that your fear was being alone. I think your problem is the exact opposite.
Oh, really? Please, enlighten me.
Make friends easily when you allow it to happen.
You think I don't like making friends?
No. I think you love it. And deep down, that scares you. Because your real fear is putting down roots.
So now you're a ship's counselor.
I understand. It is better to leave than to be the one left behind. But that's wrong. You create bonds. It's a gift. Of course, the people you care about are going to cause you pain. It will hurt. But the love it yields will far outweigh the sorrow. Oh. Hand me the electron coupler.
We're going to do this properly this week. Welcome to the It's Got Star Trek podcast. It is episode 139 of the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
And, I am sans notes today.
And Dan is sans notes.
Well, I have maybe like a couple notes.
I have some
nothing
stupid
like
notes.
Usual.
Already losing control of this whole business.
Would you like some of my notes?
There's some housekeeping. So the housekeeping for episode 139 of the podcast, in which we are going to be discussing Strange New Worlds, season 1, episode 9, All Those Who Wander. We must note first that, as originally envisioned, we believe that Dan would be unavailable to join us this evening. So Dan recorded some of his own thoughts and sent them in.
His mission was curtailed.
But then, happenstance,
due to happenstance,
the way the universe shifts its plans from time to time.
A peculiar happenstance.
Turns out Dan was available. So
I was needed more in another place. As the cosmos decided.
On the It's Got Star Trek podcast. So Dan is joining us live via Zoom. So that's one of the housekeeping factors there is, okay, Dan is on Zoom. And we have recordings of Dan, which we fully intend to play and comment on.
Zoom.
We can see if Dan still agrees with his views from, I guess, last night. See if his views have changed at all.
Dan's going to zoom.
Okay.
So I can probably sit back more this podcast. Oh, does it make a noise when I turn off the mic? It could be like my sneeze button. Nobody knows, but I just coughed a bunch because I just turned off my mic.
I think people could tell from the context clues. Okay. We'll include that among housekeeping. We won't count it as ridiculous dilly-dallying. That's housekeeping. I think that's the most thing. The other housekeeping thing is we'll try to approach this episode. This is a very intense episode in a somewhat organized manner. I don't know how long we'll be able to manage that, but we'll try. So I was thinking we might start out with talking about some of the parallels to Alien/Aliens and Predator. Right?
Oh yeah,
I think that's one thing we could start chatting about.
It had that vibe.
Then we can talk about Lon and Oriana and that business there, and then there's the whole Uhura's first season arc and sort of how it seems like that's concluded now. Then Spock's rage, emotion stuff. We can chat a little bit about that, and then of course Hemmer's death. Dun dun dun, quote unquote death. We'll see. I think there's a lot to discuss there. So we'll save that towards the end, along with odds and ends, which always comes at the end of the episode. So, okay, that's the plan.
Sounds like a good plan.
Let's see if we can
go with that one.
If we can stick to that plan. All right. So
I'm sticking.
So in an effort to begin the plan, we can start discussing what did you all think about the parallel?
It had that alien vibe. It was like an alien movie.
It was kind of like
any kind of movie where an alien was like a super menace that was totally messing everyone's
But with
stuff
the whole like chest bursters, except I guess it's what is it, like kidney bursters in this case?
Something horrible.
Dan, did you remember where it came out of?
They all
it wasn't clear to me.
Screaming out of you like that.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the chest, but I couldn't remember because I only saw the episode
action.
once. I
It
felt like it was something like
it was that alien dude.
Liver, kidney.
Who knows where it came out of?
Maybe it just comes out of wherever, right?
Yeah.
Let's not find out.
Well, for me, it was kind of interesting because the production value obviously is fantastic. They did a really effective job of having that alien, the first Alien movie horror vibe, but
because that one dude just gets dragged away, right? That Duke
Lieutenant Chad.
Lieutenant.
Yeah, it just I'm
Lieutenant Yellow Shirt.
There were times, especially with the kidney burster Gorn baby, that it was almost a little too on the nose in terms of alien references. To me,
and then like the sort of alien Gorn vision.
It was very
that was like more Predator like. Right?
Well, and then the little girl, the little Oriana, is basically Newt from Aliens, right?
Yeah.
It's the same concept. Somebody who's sort of trapped with these horrible creatures and watched a bunch of people die. Oh, and by the way, the actor who played Oriana is Erin Ho, who is the twin sister of Ian Ho, who played the first servant in Lift Us Up Where Suffering Cannot Reach.
Oh, snap.
And some of our audience members may recognize both of them because they play brother and sister in the Strange Dogs segments of the final season of The Expanse, in season 6 of The Expanse.
Oh, yeah,
and they're twins. They're fraternal twins.
Oh man,
that's a little trivia for you.
I did not put that together.
I don't know what you all thought. To me, it was. I mean, it was not only derivative. It was more than an homage. It was very Aliens-like.
No, it was very much.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was effective. It just wasn't super innovative or creative.
No, I didn't. It definitely wasn't. But it really got me involved. I was watching it and it had my attention the whole time, which is interesting because last week, I don't know if last week I was just sort of like in a mood because I was, leaving town the next day or whatever. But on that, maybe I need to rewatch last week's episode. But like, I really enjoyed this week's a lot more than I enjoyed last week's. And I know it was pretty derivative. And I know like it was, the whole, alien bursting out of the stomach thing. And it was kind of like this weird sci-fi horror that Star Trek doesn't usually do. But I found myself just like completely engrossed in the episode for whatever reason. So it took me out of whatever place I was in at the moment.
Gross.
Whereas last week, I just felt like it was kind of like, I just didn't feel like anything really went. I just felt like it was biding time until like what happened at the end.
I found last week's episode to be a little bit more creative and interesting in that sense, the Elysian Kingdom. But like I said last week, I loved last week's episode. It's one of my favorite of the season, but I also totally understand where people are coming from if they found it less engaging or less enjoyable. I was highly engaged in this episode. It's just a couple of those things took me out of it just a bit, the alien bit. And the other thing was, and admittedly, this may be mostly on me, although I suspect it's not only me. Once I saw the little baby Gorn chest burster, kidney burster things, all I could think of was the alien at the end of Spaceballs. The hello, come on, my darling, the alien that like it just looked like that to me, like scuttling about. It was scary. It was really well done. But I don't know. It's just something about the proportions. And
so like those dudes, like when they get older, they're all like slow and logy, like.
Well, this has been a debate. And in fact, I think now is a good time to play one of Dan's clips. One of Dan's bits. So he sent us 4 total clips.
Yeah, I'm actually hesitant to talk now because I don't want to just like say what I said on.
No, I mean you should. We want to see if it matches up. This is the perfect experiment. We should quiz you.
If me talking now matches up with the clip that I recorded.
I want to see if you are consistent in your views, or if
you can recite it as it plays along.
Yeah, or if you've got one of them, goofy minds that just flits this way and that. Now I think we're going to play these somewhat out of order. So if Dan, you have any embedded running gags, it's possible. It's possible that they will be slightly out of order. But
okay, you played them out of order.
Let's we'll play the clip where you discuss the Gorn a little bit in the space horror.
I'm back. Now there's some Arizona moths in the Arizona plains that I'm in. I haven't turned on the Arizona ceiling fan yet. What? Oh, wait. That's because I'm in New Mexico. My bad. So the deal with these Gorns, I guess we're learning a few things about Gorn. The babies eat each other, so that's kind of gross, but that's like how they work. That's how they're strong, right? Like, isn't that how Spartans work or something? Don't Spartans kill each other? Aren't there all sorts of people and things and stories about things that they like kill each other and then they love it? Oh yeah, that's in Game of Thrones, right? They did that too. The Aquaman in Game of Thrones with the Khaleesi.
The Dothraki.
Didn't they do something like that?
Anyways,
a lot of places do that, and probably a lot of cultures do that. But Gorn are super hardcore about it. So the babies, the eggs come out of the people. It did have definitely like that space horror vibe, kind of like Alien, It was done really well, actually. It was really creepy. It was
see, you're consistent.
A lot of ambiance, and it was pretty darn creepy with like the Gorn cam and that stuff. I do think, though, that they probably should have, considering that the Gorn were able to circumvent the biofilter the first time around when they came down to the situation, saw everyone dead.
Circumvent the biofilter.
You'd think that they'd be a little more careful with that Buckley guy. They probably should have realized something's up when they were studying that Buckley guy, and he was all gooey with red veins all over his place.
Buckley guy.
And
that was shady.
They probably should have been like, well, they circumvented our biofilters. Maybe they can circumvent our sensors, but they weren't able to.
Who's Buckley?
They were able to, but they didn't see that coming. And they saw this gooiness and weirdness, and maybe it happened so quickly that they didn't have time to think of it, but you'd think it would occur to them a little sooner that like, hey, maybe there's a Gorn in this Buckley character.
I'd be more
shady. They didn't see that
about
coming. That's fine.
If it was in one of them already, then
so then they had that whole spooky, suspenseful space horror situation, and then Oriana all runs away. She knows what's happening. That was actually kind of chilling. She's like, uh-oh, and then she runs off to a corner, and she's like, here it comes. And it's like, oh gosh, this girl's had to deal with some bullshit, man.
I'll pause it real quick because I wanted to comment that that Oriana, I agree, Dan, that Oriana running thing, and specifically where she covers her mouth and like closes her eyes because I guess that's where the egg juice goes in, the egg spittle. That was messed up.
There's something about like watching a child of course, watching a child scream is awful. We can all agree on that. But also on the other side of it, watching a child just quietly like reflexively cover up and like go to a corner and just kind of quiver without saying anything. It's like, oh my God, that poor child.
Yeah, that's not cool.
It's upsetting.
So
that's not cool for anybody.
And then the Gorn seemed like, obviously they're not going to make them look like they would in TOS. I'm not saying that. And this is not a complaint or criticism. It's interesting. It's just noting that Gorn seemed like super agile when they seemed the opposite of agile in TOS. Once again, I'm not complaining at all about like maintaining consistency.
Once again, I'm asking for your support.
Star Trek has never attempted to really do that too much. They have, but they also haven't. Klingons are a perfect example. I thought it was kind of neat though. It made me wonder how they control those ships though. Now I want to see a Gorn fly a spaceship because like trying to picture them as some kind of animal alien monster, but they can also they're also super pilots. So it's kind of like hard for me to picture that because they seem so monster like, and you don't think of lizard monster, dinosaur lizards being able to control ships, but they can, and they're pretty awesome. And I'm into
the image is comical.
More of the Gorn and kind
of
when you
do imagine dinosaurs.
I figured it would happen. And it did, and I'm really digging that.
So I'm taking it that you guys aren't into the whole Gorn design.
I know I'm into the Gorn design.
I'm into it too. Yeah.
I'm into it. It's the baby Gorn jumping out. It's not. Yeah. And if just to clarify my earlier statement, I like the design. It's just that it's the size and the proportions and how it was scuttling about, particularly when it first burst out, just remind me of the Spaceballs alien.
And
I can't get out of my head.
I was trying to cut it some slack. I was trying to because like I was like, it like immediately brought up imagery of Alien, and I didn't even think about Predator until like you guys mentioned it.
Yeah,
But
the Predator vision.
It was pretty blatant, and like I was just trying to cut it some slack. But I will be willing to say like, yeah, they could have thought about something else.
It's fun. It's very well executed. These are minor nitpicks. It's just that it would be push the episode just that much further up in our level of esteem if they had come up with a slightly less derivative way of conveying horror.
That's a solid point.
Yeah, and I'm sensitive to the this is a television show. They're working on a TV budget and time frame and all that. And even though it's much higher budgets and fewer episodes per season, I'm sure sometimes you just get to the point where you're like, we need a shortcut. We need to get this done. Well, let's draw from this when we're putting together I don't know if it's the director's decision, production designer, all of them, whatever it was.
Well, when you mentioned budget, it made me think of the CG that they use to make these things, and I'm wondering how they would look if it was in a light environment, like with light, like would they just look totally shitty and terrible? Like because it was all dark, it was passable. Do you think it would? Because like sometimes I've complained before about like when CG gets a little bit too perfect looking and it like looks.
But the Bucky guy,
out the lights,
he looked good, and I presume there were some CGI elements there, even if they used some practical stuff.
I think it was a mix though,
and that was a light. That was a pretty bright environment.
I thought Buckley looked really good. I think I'm impressed with a lot of like their aliens, but they're humanoid people walking. Like the ones that you can tell they're using mixed CGI, and I mean it seemed like
Discovery has also done a
Discovery has some good aliens, man.
But I don't think I'm guessing that with the Gorn they didn't use some kind of Andy Serkis golem kind of like they probably just did all in whatever they use, After Effects or whatever.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about the Gorn business is on the one hand we are learning a little bit more Gorn lore. And Gorn lore is limited within the on-screen canon. I know there's a lot in the books and comics, but Gorn lore is somewhat limited in the what we've seen, right? In the quote unquote official Star Trek.
There's the Enterprise episode that's in the Mirror universe. It's got a Gorn. They talk about a Gorn anyway.
And then we've seen Gorn weddings and a couple other and some Gorn salesmen weddings on lower decks. Yeah. So at certainly in the 24th century, the Gorn seem to have calmed down somewhat, and
they're not quite
out other
so
things.
murderous.
So I mean, we know from TOS and from lower decks and other references that the Gorn are considered formidable, but at similar to the Klingons and others, at some point there's some peace made.
They chilled out,
and yet they're presenting them here as it's an instinctual thing, right? These are monsters. They're saying they're intelligent.
They're pretty fucking monstrous.
Yeah, but they're still acting like monsters.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing is they haven't. I was thinking about that too. How they haven't yet shown us like the sort of relatable side or the aspect that shows them as anything other than monsters. And like, how something as stupid as me, like I was saying, how do they control the ship? I don't know. Are they going to go so far as to show us something like that? I'm skeptical, but like, I want to know how a Gorn flies a ship. Or builds a ship.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, and I don't know if it'll be concluded.
Seem to fly them very well.
Yeah, well, if it, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's a this season thing or moving, ongoing into the next season.
Because there's only one more.
Well, there's one more episode, season finale.
One more. This was the penultimate.
The penultimate. Last week's was the anti-penultimate episode. The Gorn, I've kind of gotten the impression that the way they're presenting the Gorn through the eyes of La'an,
you stupid motherfucker.
Fuck
you. You say dumb shit.
But through the eyes of La'an and through the actual battle that we saw the Enterprise and Pike's crew deal with the Nebula and all that business.
Oh, man.
Different angles of it, but still we're being presented with them as highly vicious. And in this case, I mean, these are just terrible monsters. And the argument I've heard that I buy into is that perhaps these are, the juveniles are like this, maybe, or whatever. Certainly seems to be the case. And then they grow more sophisticated as they mature. So sure, that might be the case. Because it just, to me, if you're watching Star Trek and you have Star Trek writers and producers whose goal is to produce a throwback version of Star Trek more in the TOS mold, updated with less overt sexism and other horrific elements, that you're going to set up a storyline that's going to have the big twist being that, like, actually the Gorn are not like hugely evil people, and whatever they're doing, they have some justification for that. Maybe you don't agree with it. Maybe they are still very aggressive and violent, but that they're not soulless, mindless monster creatures.
They just got to lay their eggs in other people.
Yeah. Well, but if that's what they got to do, you know, fucking baleen whales, they eating up all them krill. Yeah. The krill don't like that, presumably.
Well, to their credit,
the dog has
I
to
remember
chase the cats.
you mentioning, Patrick, you mentioning that one of the internet complaints for the first Gorn episode was that we didn't get to see the Gorn, right? It was just the ships, and people were like, "Why didn't they show the Gorn?"
Some people,
but they followed through. They it paid off. They delivered
some Gorn babies anyway.
Whereas like they just showed them in a ship before, and then they waited a few episodes and then sort of drip fed us bird vomit and gave us the, you know, how birds, because birds eat like that. That's how birds eat. They eat bird vomit.
All right.
I know how birds eat, dude.
I didn't mean to say that to say it was bad. I realize now that I said that analogy might seem like I'm saying something bad. Point being is that they delivered in the sense that they just showed them in the ship before, and now a few episodes later now we get to see the Gorn. So presumably they will give us some more information down the line. Now, will they? I don't know, but it seems like so far they're in a pattern of developing more Gorn.
Will it be next season?
Yeah, I think it's hard to predict because they are still producing this show to be largely not episodic, right? You know, self-contained stories that have little tidbits that continue through the season. I think they've been doing a good job of it so far.
Yeah, and I think the concern was with the Gorn. It's like, they're not going to follow up on that, but they seem to be. So maybe.
Well, and another concern that some folks have, I don't personally, but they are bending the canon somewhat, depending on how seriously you want to take it. I just don't take a lot of TOS canon that particularly. I mean, TOS and TNG often broke their own canon. I mean, all the time.
It's a bit of a jumble.
Yeah, so you got to make decisions based on the storyline. In the TOS episode, Arena, where we are introduced to the Gorn, there's the heavy implication that the Gorn are sort of a somewhat known about, but like not really. And certainly Spock doesn't make a comment saying like, "Oh yeah, I fought off a bunch of Gorn on multiple occasions." Right?
Remember back in the day, and that dude died, and I was pissed off.
Now, it's fine if that bothers you, because it's, you know, what we're seeing now somewhat contradicts on-screen, previous on-screen stuff. That's fine. I understand. That's the kind of breaking canon that doesn't bother me. If it improves the story and all you have to do to shift Arena is to just slightly change it. So it's like, all right, oh shit, we got to deal with this.
It's like an Alien movie.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's got Sam Kirk in it.
Well, it's interesting. Cause Patrick, you often like, not complain's not the right word, but you often lament that people get too hung up on canon, and right now you seem to be not hung up on canon, but you seem to pay more attention to it now than you have in the past.
Here's the distinction. I'd say the distinction is this. First of all, canon can sometimes be more relevant when it comes to prequels than it does to sequels, because sequels can still fuck around with canon in some ways, but prequels, it can be more important because you can break things, right? You don't want to break things too much, right?
Yeah.
I buy into that argument, right? You can stretch it, but you don't want to stretch it too far.
So like the Ferengi was okay, because with TNG, the Ferengi, like from TNG to DS9, the Ferengi kind of like swabbled around.
And then they vastly improved a terrible concept.
So you're okay with subsequent improvements, but not when like you like change.
No. And what I'm saying is I don't mind when they make changes. I understand when people get aggravated if those changes start getting pushed too far, because I can also be aggravated. I don't think, I'm saying, in my view, Strange New Worlds has not yet done that they're making story-related decisions that are not of a huge impact in the future, but make things work better now, and we want to learn about certain things. Enterprise did a pretty good job of negotiating around this. Discovery, of course, had its own unique way of sort of sidestepping that whole issue. What the distinction I want to make though is I don't get aggravated when people are all fussy about canon. I get aggravated when people are fussy about canon and then start being horrible people to other fans and talking about how other fans are stupid for liking a show or something. That's what I'm not cool with. And that's what you see in hand in hand. There are plenty of people who have problems with canon bending stuff, and they make very cogent, reasonable, normal arguments that are not filled with vitriol and hatred.
This is kind of like a tangent, almost off topic, but are you comfortable discussing your opinion of Nemesis, Patrick?
I thought you were going to ask me about abortion or something. It's such a serious thing. Yeah, I am not a fan of Nemesis. I do not dislike people who enjoy Star Trek Nemesis.
Okay, but
that's what I'm saying.
I was going with that.
Like, I don't. If somebody tells me. If somebody I respect tells me that they very much enjoyed Star Trek Nemesis,
I rather like that movie.
I'm not like my level of respect for them is not being reduced, or if it is, it's by a marginal amount.
Okay. Where I was kind of taking that was one of the issues you had with this episode is it maybe felt a little too Nemesis-y in the sense where it was like maybe too much like unneeded action kind of stuff, like Picard riding around on a moon, like a moon.
No, yeah. I mean, that was one of my many critiques.
Because I was just thinking about that because I keep thinking about why it is last week that I didn't hate the episode, but I just was sort of meh to the episode. Yeah. And I think it's like partly like, I did I mention this, that Cupid,
yes,
the TNG
Cupid
episode,
which is
not a married man.
That's a divisive episode.
Beloved episode. Which say what?
It's a divisive episode, right?
Yeah, and I'm like,
Cupid.
I don't hate it, but it's not my favorite. Yeah. I think it's kind of like,
it's a silly episode.
Whatever.
I like it, so it makes sense that I liked the Elysian Kingdom because that's the vibe I'm digging.
And so it's not like I'm not against the episode, but it's like the same kind of.
You're not for or against
in the way where it's like kind of like this sort of fantasy kind of weird like. It's fine. It just doesn't interest me as much. And then, but on the flip side, like. I'm not exactly a huge fan of like, like for what was the second Into Darkness? The
Star Trek Into Darkness, yes.
Yeah, on the flip side, I really wasn't, and sorry if I'm going to be talking not great about certain things, but I think it's relevant. Into Darkness, I was not that into that movie either, and that was on the other side where that was like really action heavy and stuff. So I was not really into that one either. But for some reason, this one, I don't know. I was like, all right.
I did not perceive the action elements of this episode to be unnecessary. I thought they were all really well done. It's just that they were very derivative of something that already exists, and it to me seems like it was sort of a shortcut to say we want to have a thrilling. Upsetting episode, which I think they accomplished and accomplished extremely well.
The Gorn seem to be doing some very upsetting stuff.
Yeah. Everything we hear about the Gorn is the Gorn lore.
It's bad news.
Gorn lore is
Gorn lore.
We're learning so much Gorn lore.
All
right, how about this?
Gorn lore. But yeah, no, I agree with that.
Why don't we take a quick break and then we can move along? Yes, Dan. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll move along home to our next topic, which I think will be La'an and Oriana. All right, we'll be right back. All righty, we're back.
Woo. Where'd we go?
We went for a break.
We went for a brief break.
Did we go for a bio break?
Don't say that. That's disgusting.
I had no such thing.
One of the worst.
Didn't go for a bio break.
Quit saying that, man. That's upsetting.
You keep saying that.
This is how professional people say they're taking a big fat stinky dump.
I know. Why can't they just say I'm taking a dump?
That's not bio.
I gotta go on a bio break.
It's not
I gotta rub shit all over the walls. That's what bio break means to me, is you shitting in your hand and rubbing it on the walls. It's gross. Don't leave it up to my imagination. Just tell me what you're doing so I know. And I'm not like thinking that you're doing some kind of coprophagia kind of deal.
All right. I'm glad you were able to join us live this week, Dan.
Yeah.
All right. So let's discuss the next little arc that they have in this episode. The whole business with La'an and Oriana, and I think we've briefly touched on it, but this idea that La'an is now meeting somebody in Oriana who is very similar to her. She's gone through a similar experience to her. right? And the subtext, of course, of this whole La'an wanting to help Oriana is that the process will help heal La'an herself, right? Because now she's not alone, right? She was alone and was the only person, in her view anyway, to have had this sort of experience. And now she has somebody to sort of share that experiential knowledge with, while also being in a
nobody
position.
Else escaped, right?
Yeah, and she's in a position to help Oriana learn. What was the line she had? The difference between living and dying. The thing that Pike told the La'an.
Living and surviving.
Yeah, living. That's right. The Pike gave that little speech to La'an earlier in the season, right at the beginning, about living versus surviving. Yeah. And now she's passing that wisdom along. That's part of what La'an was saying at the end when she was thanking Captain Pike. She was thanking him for the wisdom that he imparted upon her. And then now she is able to impart along to this young girl who has got another horrific experience. There's a lot of fucking horrific. Children are dealing with some horrible shit in this season.
Yeah, I know.
Of Strange New Worlds. This lighthearted TV show.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we kind of lost like two characters.
I thought this was going to be
because we don't know what's going to happen with La'an, but it seems like kind of like a Tilly situation where they're on extended leave.
And that's what I'm interested in is how much of La'an's journey, or La'an and Oriana's journey, to find Oriana's family. How much of that do you think we're going to see? Right? Because
I hope so.
Maybe she'll just be back next season.
I'm very hesitant. She's definitely back next season. I mean, that's hopefully not considered spoilers because it's just she's a main character on the
Do we know anything about Tilly coming back?
I think she is, but I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I haven't heard specifically. But with La'an, we could see a resolution to this in the next episode. We could see,
you're right.
Maybe we don't see her next episode, but it's all resolved in the season 2 premiere. Maybe I don't know,
because they got to do something that's gonna like make us even more intrigued next episode.
And is it going to be like she goes away and then she comes back and then we see flashbacks, or she comes back and there's some adventure associated with that, or are we going to see her story in parallel along with some other people's like the main crew's story? That's another potential route that could go, but I hesitate to try to predict these things. I'm kind
that would be that they don't do that too much in Star Trek.
Yeah, so Deep Space Nine was the kind of show where you'd see that kind of thing going on pretty frequently. But a lot of the other shows, just the setups of the shows didn't necessarily permit that kind of storytelling. I like this thing, this concept they had with La'an and Oriana. It really makes sense. It helps sort of shift. It doesn't close La'an's arc, but it shifts the direction of the arc, right? So she's gone through some sort of self-discovery over the course of the season, gotten a little stronger, gotten a little bit of help along the way. And now she's going to hopefully be able to complete that process while helping somebody else, like in the process of helping somebody else. And it sort of goes to the whole Star Trek and particularly Pike's philosophy of which seems to be you can help yourself by helping other people. Like that's the quickest way to improve your own life is by helping other people's lives, which is pretty nice message, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
How about Dan? You had a recording. One of your recordings,
one of your bits,
talked a little bit about this, and I think you have some important points here. Let me just load up that recording.
Hello. I'm walking outside in the desert of New Mexico in the middle of the day.
I don't think
there's lots of monsters outside. Like there's loons, and there's eagles, and there's some kind of duck.
Loons, I could see.
Ducks and
Japanese luna moth. These are all things that are native to New Mexico. I haven't seen any moose yet, but I have seen a lot of lighthouses.
All right.
All the New Mexico lighthouses. They're beautiful.
I'm very suspicious.
They look cool. They don't all have electricity. They have groundskeepers sometimes, I think all the time, but they don't always have a place to go to the bathroom. And this is all in New Mexico. We're talking about Star Trek.
Were we?
Season 1, Episode 9. Speaking of lighthouses in New Mexico, the first thing I noticed is that I like that they're open and supportive of therapy in this episode.
Wait, the lighthouses or the show?
Starfleet Recovery Assistance You always hear about like people, at least on the TV, you always hear about, I'm a police officer. They can't know I saw a therapist. Oh no, if they do, no one will think I'm a good police officer anymore. Yeah. I'm basing this strictly off of like my knowledge of television.
Yeah,
so
me too.
It's not based on any reality, but I'm guessing there's something to that.
In movies.
And in Starfleet, in the future, we will support therapy and not see it as a weakness. We'll see it as a strength.
Like Dr. Miggly Moo.
Need to ask for help from time to time.
Yeah, they got that Miggly Moo.
Needs help from time to time. And even if there are some people that for some reason don't, well, there's no telling what someone's going to get afflicted with. And just because you experience something crappy doesn't mean you're no longer qualified to do your job. In fact, it might make you more qualified, as was the case when
that
Lon was talking to, was it Ariana? Was that her name? Oriana? Yeah, Oriana. Lon was out giving Oriana a hard time about,
Did you make that song up like when you watched it?
They had Gorn babies in them. Gorn eggs, not yet babies, but eggs. And then Benga like comes in, he's like, hey, chill out, leave my daughter alone. Uh-oh, that's not my daughter. Oh no. And so then he goes and talks to her and he's like, sometimes emotions get in the way. Sometimes emotions or things can be filtered through the lens of emotion, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I know, or whatever. I'm basing this off experience or something. He's like, no, man, Lon. I'm talking about me and Benga.
No, man.
I was doing that. I wasn't accusing you of doing that. I was doing that because that was I called Oriana my daughter. Don't you feel like and so he's got some baggage there. And obviously he should have some baggage there. It'd be weird if he didn't. So maybe
it was just last episode.
Yeah.
But that allowed it to sort of open up the conversation from there to be like, for him to point out to Lon, it's like, hey, instead of like, you're the one, you're specifically qualified to be able to communicate with Oriana because she went through the exact same situation as you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they didn't say this, but it's almost like implied. It's like maybe when Lon was yelling at Oriana, she was kind of like yelling at herself a little bit,
Good point.
Totally.
Being like, why didn't I stop this stuff from happening or whatever. But anyways, so Mbenga's sort of like situation where he referred to her as his daughter sort of opened the situation up to sort of like segued into Lon being able to do the thing where she says like, oh wait, I'm like the one who's most qualified to be able to relate to this person. I've gone on for a long time. Okay, I'm coming back later maybe. Bye.
There's no real proof that these are pre-recorded segments. It could be that Dan just went to a different part of his house and
just
talked with a different voice, sort of.
No one's gonna know unless they get the video feed.
Yeah,
that's an excellent point. And I think that you made a few excellent points along the way there too, Dan.
Segue.
I hadn't really considered the idea that La'an was yelling at herself, like her anger at the girl was in part anger at herself, but clearly that's has to be the intention because that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I would imagine and it's like because that's a brutal thing to say to a kid. It's like, well, you're responsible for a bunch of people dying. Like you have to be caught up in your own sort of like world of trauma to like say that to a kid and not realize that that's a fucked up thing to say.
It really is. It's like, but we're putting these poor kids through so much, and the actors are related to each other. They're brother and sister, and they both have to be.
I didn't know that. That's so wild, man.
Tortured. It's crazy. And the other thing I thought was an interesting point was about the Starfleet attitude towards mental health, and I think this is something that Star Trek in general has been pretty good at going way back. I think not, at least often well-meaning.
All the way to Gary Mitchell.
Because the doctor, what's her name? Wasn't she a psychologist or psychiatrist?
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
psychiatrists can prescribe medication. Psychologists cannot.
Yes. Deanna Troi obviously was a main character on TNG.
She was on the bridge.
I think one could certainly quibble sometimes with some of her pop psychology.
That's the thing.
Because it was written by writers,
Writers.
That's an interesting point you bring up about Troy, because I didn't even think about it, because it's like I almost forget that Troy was like a psychologist. You know, she was the ship's counselor. She was essentially a psychologist, but like I didn't even realize it because like I don't know, she had some other thing going on. I always thought of first that
with
she
her
was like
her empathic abilities.
half Beta Z sat by Picard's left side, and I don't know.
But
I almost didn't think of her as a psychologist for some reason, which is weird.
Have you all seen? There's a meme going around recently in the last few days, anyway, where it was talking about how Picard putting his psychiatrist next to him on the bridge must have been terrifying for enemies, because it demonstrates that this motherfucker needs to be chilled out all the time. He needs his psychiatrist right there so he doesn't freak out on you. That's the impression it gives. I never thought of that before. But on lower decks, they have Dr. Miggly Moo and certainly Dr. Bashir and the Doctor on Voyager and Dr. Culber on Discovery. They've all acted in the role of a counselor in some fashion or another.
Yeah, Dr. Bashir was like a medical sort of like physical body doctor first.
They didn't have like the dedicated like they had with with Counselor Troy or Dr. Miggly Moo.
And I think it also it seemed more specific with La'an, because she went through she went through specific trauma, and we know that she recently is starting to try and face that trauma more.
Yeah.
So it seems more like I'm doing this Gorn now to finally deal with my trauma. So it seems much more pointed with La'an's situation.
Yeah.
Plus I guess also we don't get to see the psychologist, so it makes it seem more like she's going off to the.
They just mention the name. I forget who it is, like Dr. Sullivan or something.
I can't remember the name, but it did have that air of organizationally required psychological analysis, which is very common now, particularly in the police, military, other things like that. At least, again, I like you, Dan. My understanding comes from television that's the case. But it is a positive view of mental health, and especially you were saying in that clip about how not only does your trauma not necessarily impair you in terms of your contributions to the crew, but it may in fact make you better able to help out in certain contexts, in certain situations, which I think is a very positive message.
Because most everyone has to deal with some serious shit from time to time. And this attitude of like suppressing it because you don't want anyone to find out, this idea that we have to pretend that we're not going, like everyone feels like they have to pretend that they're like on top of their game.
Well, and what you're getting at is what it is it's a fear of weakness. It's because of a culture in which weakness of the mind is associated with weakness more generally. But yet the attitude people have towards breaking a leg or tearing their ACL and being in a wheelchair for 3 months while they recover is not looked the same as somebody who has a mental disorder. Somebody who has a chronic disease like cancer or something is not looked on the same. It's gotten a lot better. I think we're in a much better place than we used to be, but there are still many people who even if intellectually they'd like to not think about it that way, they take it on and want to hide any sort of mental illness or hint of mental illness, not understanding it's the illness part they should be focusing on. It's something that can be treated.
And this idea that we like you just said, fear of weakness, and that we encourage this. It takes strength to admit weakness.
Absolutely.
It takes strength to not just face it, but to be comfortable enough to talk about it. Be like, yeah, I'll talk about this. It's no big deal. I know it's some crazy shit, right? That I'm dealing with. But if you're confident in yourself, it shows strength. So
and I think that point is also important to make, that it does take strength, and sometimes people aren't in a position to have that strength, and it's going to take them some time to get there. So
yeah, totally.
And the way this has been presented with La'an, I think treats both sides of it very well. It encourages La'an to talk about her trauma, to seek treatment, to find ways to work through that. At the same time, it's not shaming her for her resistance to doing that, right? It's not saying she's a terrible person or what the fuck is wrong with her for not going to the doctor or being grumpy about having to go to the doctor. You know, that's understandable.
And it's said time and time again, but it's really worth repeating that grieving is a process, and like you can't really force it. There's things you can do to try to face it, but it is a process, and it's going to take time to digest all that. So totally, it's not like you can just be like, okay, I'm in therapy now, everything's great. You know, it takes time to just get to that stage to therapy. You have to go. Everyone has to go through their own shit. And it's why it's helpful to have friends around and stuff to sort of like help prepare you and be comfortable with like talking about that. And, crew or coworkers.
I think that's a good transition into the business with Uhura.
Definitely.
And especially that conversation between Uhura and Hemmer, where he's just sort of seeing through her. Right. And he's doing that's the benefit of having relationships with people, is because often, not always, but often they're able to see things from a perspective, see you from a perspective that you can't or won't see yourself from.
And he can't actually see.
Oh. Well, these guys, they're so smart. Not us, the writers. The writers are very smart. Yeah, I really like that scene because it made sense within the character, not only the character we've been introduced to this season in Uhura, but what we know her to become, right? Like this arc of her getting to her or finding her path in Starfleet makes sense and sort of strengthens the character that comes later on. You know, having this past knowledge of her now, we can appreciate more her loyalty to Starfleet, her loyalty to the Enterprise, and the reasons why she's such an effective officer.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to wait on talking about Hemmer, but like
we can wait till we talk about his death until the next break. But he's an important part of Uhura's arc here,
right? And it totally gives it weight and significance with stakes and stuff like it. It makes her, right. Like you said, like from the start, she's always been kind of like, I don't know. And then like, it took him to really push her into it. So it gave her a good, like, I don't want to call it an origin story, because that's kind of,
It kind of is though. Right? We learned so much more, not just Gorn lore, but Uhura lore.
Yeah, Uhura lore.
In this season,
Uhura lore.
Learning about her parents dying, her grandma being in Starfleet, and that's what sort of inspired her to join Starfleet. Why she learned all these languages, but partly because of where she's from, and that she was eager to communicate with people. It's just like what Hemmer is saying. She likes making friends, but at the same time has this completely understandable and common. I think this is not an uncommon thing. The whole being scared of losing people, so you don't make relationships in the first place, right? Or you sabotage relationships because you're worried about the pain you'll feel if something goes south or if something happens to that person, etc.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're gonna play that recording or not, but I mentioned that the line where Hemmer basically says, it's easier to leave than to be left.
Let's go ahead and let's play that recording that you made. I think that's a good idea.
I'm back. It's been about a week or two.
No, it hasn't.
There's a New Mexico.
The timeline does not match.
Ethereal planes of existence.
Ethereal planes.
And I'm starting to see things. It's getting weird.
There's walk about in New Mexico.
Toilet beyond a door. And there's like some TV downstairs. I don't know where all this stuff. And I'm surrounded by walls. And I don't know at what point I found this
previous clip had clues that suggested someplace in the Northeast.
New Mexico works sometimes.
But this one is just talking about
that's
regular old
here
walls.
nor there. Hemmer, oh my gosh, what do we have to say about Hemmer? Much crying. That's very sad. That actually was pretty tough, like seeing Hemmer go, because he's so awesome. And I really respect him for doing that though. That's the thing, is on one hand it was really tough, and I didn't want to see him go. But on the other hand, it's kind of like there was something at stake here. You feel there's actually something at stake. They didn't pull a punch. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know what went on behind the scenes. I don't know if there was some reason for it. I don't care if there was a reason for it or not. All I know is that it worked, and the way they executed it worked for me. And it was really sad to see Hemmer go, but it makes sense because it kind of like he is the reason Uhura stayed in Starfleet. Like she was ready to go out the door, and then Hemmer had to sacrifice himself to fix, Uhura, she was like, he fixes broken things. And of course it's referencing, she's not necessarily saying she's broken, but
that was touching.
It sort of gave her purpose in a way. And so that was pretty upsetting. But I think it was done really well, and it was satisfying. I like when he said, it is better to leave than to be the one left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's what he was saying. Hemmer was saying to Uhura, and about like that attitude. And he wasn't saying that he agrees with that. He wasn't saying like, that's the way you should live. He was like saying, like, basically saying, like, I know it's easier to leave than to be left, is what he was saying. And he was saying that to Uhura, basically being like, I know what you're doing. People like you. You're friendly. You're very likable and you're a good person and people like you. But it's easier. It's definitely easier. Everyone knows that feeling of like, nobody likes being left, right? It's easier to leave or to force someone to leave or whatever, And so that's true. And I can relate to that personally, with Uhura, this sort of idea of like, yeah, it can be tough to get close to people because like, it sucks when they're no longer around. So when he said to her, he was basically saying, when he said it's better to leave than to be the one left behind, he's saying like, that's, maybe you should reconsider that, living that way. And she didn't outright say that she was doing that, but he could read her. He basically knew her, like how she treats things. Yeah, and
that outside perspective.
And he was basically just saying like, don't be afraid to let yourself open. And, I like that message. So that was
New Mexico trains back there.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. I mean, there was a few things about Hemmer. Hemmer did like to have fun. His whole thing where he was laughing because the whole planet was all awful and everyone hated it and everyone was like, oh, this place sucks. He's like, it reminds me of Andoria. And he was like the only one out digging it. And then of course that also sets up for when he like has his final moments. He's like, just like Andoria, and it's like, oh man, bummer. And then he, falls and it sucks. And it was, but it was a really effective scene. So yeah, there's that.
I probably could have condensed that down to like a couple minutes.
What was that
Went around
noise?
circles.
That sound in the
It
background?
sounded like a train back there.
Yeah, it was a New Mexican lobster train.
Oh no!
I think we'll learn more about that in his final clip.
I've heard about those New Mexico.
We'll get to the final clip in our odds and ends section at the end of the episode.
Those guys are the worst.
But I was saying about Hemmer. I was saying about Hemmer does like to have fun because I was mentioning last week when I'm gonna say it when he blew his science stick.
Yeah,
I said science stick. Yes. I do just like saying that and I was kind of like we don't. I'm not going to say it's not in his character because we don't know, but at the same time, I was like, wait, what the fuck just happened? Why did he act all super goofy all of a sudden? And we didn't, and I guess that's a shame. I was reading one review, actually, I don't usually do this, but I was reading one review and they made an interesting point where it's almost too bad we didn't get like a more Hemmer focused episode. So it would hurt even more. I'm kind of glad we didn't, in the sense that like that was already tough to take. I don't want it to hurt more, but I mean it probably would have benefited.
There are a few things,
some more focus time, but if we had some more time, like it would have been able to flesh out his character a little more about how he's serious. But when we first see him with Uhura, like cutting vegetables with Spock in the sort of the first Uhura, I think that was Children of the Comet or whatever.
He's there. Yeah. He's having fun there. He's trolling Uhura.
Yeah, and then and then when he's on the planet, he was like, so great, So yeah,
I do think that we do somewhat suffer a little bit from having only 10 episodes because it does limit some of the character development. They've done a great job, right? I think they've done an excellent job with the character development, but they do have a lot of characters, and we've learned a lot about Ortegas. Enough that a lot of people just fucking love Ortegas. I really love Ortegas, but we'll have to wait, it seems, a little bit to get a little bit more in depth. A Hemmer, we can discuss a little bit more about what the deal is there, but certainly up till this point we haven't really had a Hemmer centric episode. The other thing I thought was a little bit underdeveloped was the whole business between La'an and Oriana, which I know we concluded that discussion, but the last little tidbit there is that I felt like we were almost missing a scene of them talking a little bit to each other. Yeah. I think that there's just like a 1 minute scene that we were missing to deepen that evolution of that relationship that they have had. I'm sure they'll continue that in some fashion.
They might.
They may. Okay, you're right. They might. I'm not sure. I'm I'm hopeful, but I do think that was a little bit underdeveloped. And again, that might be just something that happens when you're going episodic, but only have 10 episodes, so you can't fit in some of those extra little character focused filler episodes.
Back to Uhura. I mentioned in the past that I kind of, the way they're presenting her character in Strange New Worlds, I kind of identify her in a lot of ways. I was thinking about how she, this idea of letting yourself be open and attached to someone and fear of losing them and stuff like that. And I wonder if that's I guess that's kind of related to the same reason as to why she's kind of wandering and not sure. She's like, I don't want to be in Starfleet, but she doesn't know what else she wants to do. She's like, she needs something to push her towards a commitment. And it's hard to tell if it's like she's waiting for something that really strikes her, what she wants to do. It's like she's waiting to, there's so many options ahead of her. That is she simply just waiting to find something, the best option, or is she just really afraid to commit to anything?
One thing I
felt that way. I think a lot of people.
I absolutely. It's an like you said, it's easy to identify with the character of Uhura for a lot of folks. And one thing I really liked is that in her thinking, we don't at any moment get the idea that part of her calculus of what she should do with her life is related to the significant amount of danger she's already faced in her brief time on the Enterprise, right?
Yeah,
you'd think that would be a talking point where she'd be like, I don't know, I'd rather go back to Earth and just be a professor or something where I'm not going to get eaten by Gorn monster babies or,
exploded in
sucked into black holes or anything like that.
Yeah,
she doesn't even consider that. She, when they portray her in these action scenes throughout the season, they show somebody who is concerned and nervous, and they are a novice, and they are naive.
A nervous novice.
but not lacking bravery. She's very brave, right? And I really enjoy that. La'an is the quote unquote badass who's going in head first. Una is more intellectual, but also badass. But Uhura, she's also going in, no problem. She's not scared. I mean, she's scared, but like in the kind of brave hero kind of way, where you're appropriately scared, but you're still going to do the thing. And I like that she's not sitting around saying like, oh yeah, I don't know, Starfleet's just too dangerous. They totally could have taken that route. It would have been so lame if they did. I'm glad they didn't. All right. So what do you think about the whole business with Spock? It's another area that for me was a little underdeveloped, the whole Spock rage thing.
Yeah. They're adding a lot of Vulcan lore, like heavy on the emotion stuff. I mean, I know that we're already aware that Vulcans part of the reason that they're so logical is because it's a defense mechanism.
They're scared of their emotions.
So how emotional.
Yeah.
See what?
They're scared of their emotions.
Right. And so they're really leaning heavy on that, and the heavy on is. It's kind of interesting, the heavy on the half human side, which humans are comfortable with being emotional, and then half Vulcan, where it's like they're not comfortable with being emotional because they can have intense emotions. It almost seems like that could be synergetic, sort of like being comfortable with these huge emotions. They're really exploring this.
Yeah.
I don't know. They've added a lot of sort of Vulcan stuff. I mean, and I don't know if it's for plot devices or what, because there was the whole. That episode, the switcheroo, the Freaky Friday episode, that was
Spock
like, oh, I guess they can do that now. But they've done that in the past, Star Trek a lot in the past, where Vulcans just their mind meld is done as a plot device more than anything else.
The original mind meld was also a plot device. It's like by definition, the original mind meld was a plot device.
Yeah.
It's by definition, it's a plot device. I don't mind the idea of exploring this, and it makes sense in the timeline that if you watch The Cage, one big difference with Spock, because they hadn't settled on things yet, was that he smiled. He was more emotional.
He was, yeah.
They made a writing decision.
You like those little blue plants.
Yes, you like the blue singing plants. When the producers said we don't want a lady as a first officer, and they got rid of the number one character, they transferred the number one character's logical attitude, logical personality, which was the whole idea behind number one, to Spock. So Spock became logical. Vulcans became logical, starting in Where No Man Has Gone Before and beyond. But in the canon, in the lore, we sort of understand it to mean that Spock, being half human, having faced trials and tribulations in his life, had to get to a point where he chose to fully embrace his Vulcan side. He wanted to seek Kolinar and all that other jazz, in Star Trek 1, for example. So at this stage, he's still not quite there. He's still wrestling with some of these things. So I appreciate all that. I don't have a problem with that in principle with them doing it. But the way it was portrayed in this episode, to me, I don't know. It was a little... I like the part with Sam Kirk being sort of specious and evil. But...
What's the point of this Sam Kirk anyway?
I think, I don't know.
Is that going to be revealed?
I think we're supposed to think he's funny, but that you don't necessarily totally like him. Yeah. But regardless, the thing is he's being racist to Spock, right? In a moment of intense whatever.
It's pretty fucked
and Pike's
up.
just like, hey, chill out.
Yeah, and Pike gives a great little speech about talking to each other and coming together and all that. And then there's various conversations around Spock about with Nurse Chapel about, sometimes you gotta let things go. It can be blah, 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 beneficial. I get it. I get what they're doing. But again, it feels like you're missing like one or two little scenes to move the things along in a more sensible way before he just like goes out and punches a wall because he's sad that some people died.
Was it Chapel who was at the beginning of the episode was telling him to be more emotional, like get angry because of Lieutenant Chad or whatever was being irresponsible in Jeffrey's tube.
What was his name?
Duke.
Oh, Duke.
Yeah,
Lieutenant Duke was being irresponsible, and
Dookie.
I can't remember who was saying to Spock, but it's like it's okay to be angry sometimes,
It was
and so that kind of like foreshadowed it, and then like Kirk saying, don't you ever get you're just a computer head face, and so in that sense they did, but you're right, they didn't act, but it was still that's all
Spock
they did.
should have knocked his teeth out.
There was no, they kind of told us what was happening instead of showing us what was happening. They were just, they didn't show it happening.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it just sort of a little bit came out of nowhere, or at least the degree of it. I almost think it would have been better if instead of Spock like punching a fucking giant dent into the hull, like if he had done something emotional but much more lower key, right? Sort of building up to something maybe in the future, right? Where he's not just like raging out now, but like even I would have been satisfied. Just I did really like the shot where he was clenching his fists. Yeah, I thought that's where it was going to end. I thought that was the indicator. Is like, oh, that's crazy for Spock to be standing there just fucking clenching his fists. I was like, that's some crazy shit, and that was impactful for me. And then he goes and punches him. Fucking big dent in the wall like a frat guy.
I totally agree. The clenching of the fists was like probably enough. That's like that. Vulcans don't do that shit,
And the other thing is in this episode, what wasn't clear to me, and again, maybe I fully allow for the fact that I missed something. It's quite possible, even probable. I just didn't understand fully the connection because people die all the time. In this case, yes, they had Hemmer died, and that's a more senior officer. I guess they care more about it. But then, a cadet and a lieutenant. And it's like, but the thing is they didn't set it up that it was like Spock's fault that they died. I think maybe they were trying to imply that he felt guilty because he was like right there when Lieutenant Dookie got attacked and pulled away, but
Lieutenant Dookie.
But the
Lieutenant Chad Dookie.
Yeah, but it wasn't presented in a way of Spock wasn't paying attention, or Spock. It wasn't, to me. I didn't interpret it as like, Spock could have done something different to help Lieutenant Dookie.
That's a good point. I actually hadn't considered
that. If they had, then I could understand more why Spock is feeling unusually guilty in this particular circumstance. Beyond the fact that it's, Hemmer has died. They've indicated that Spock has a good relationship with Hemmer, but that's another thing we haven't seen throughout the season, that they're like super best buddies. Maybe they were, but it's only
been hinted at.
It's like they're definitely, they get along, but I don't know. It's a minor thing again, but something that maybe could have been improved on the margins a little bit. All right. Any other thoughts about these things, or shall we? It's about time for another break, and then we can close up our discussion with a focus on the death of Hemmer.
Are there any more Dan bits?
Well, we got some. He's got some odds and ends. So, like in the odds and ends section,
I do actually.
He's got a long ass string of odds and ends. So we'll play that at the end. All right, we will be right back.
Right back.
All righty, we have returned for the final segment.
We have come right back
of this week's episode of It's Got Star Trek. And in this segment, we will focus on the quote-unquote death of Lieutenant Hemmer.
The quote-unquote?
Quote-unquote.
Quote.
Now, you mean he's not really dead?
No,
unquote.
I'm not suggesting that. However, there have been lots of discussions, and I think there's a few different angles that I think we should, because obviously when you have
that's how TV works now.
Yeah, you have an event like this where an ostensibly main character gets killed. People are going to have lots of opinions. There's going to be lots of discussion on the internet. Some of it not so friendly.
I mean, I'm mixed on it in the sense that I really didn't want to see him go, but I also, like I've said, I respect the decision because it makes it feel like there's things at stake, and that's part of like enjoying a story is going through that emotional ride.
It's just a story,
especially since we do have characters that have a bit of plot armor in the sense that we know that Uhura is going to survive and Spock is going to survive. Nurse Chapel is going to survive. Christopher Pike's going to survive up to some
Kirk
point.
Motherfucker.
Una Chin Riley, number one. Well, we have a little less information on, but still, so to have these characters where we're not exactly sure what might happen to them and to kill one off, there is a dramatic benefit to that. And just to state my own opinion, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought the end was, I agreed with your earlier statements from the recording, Dan, that this was just really well put together. It was structured well. The way they used his death to benefit, not only save the crew, but to benefit Uhura's journey and help close down her arc about whether or not to join Starfleet. I thought all that was fantastic. But there's different angles that people are taking, right? So some people agree with you, Dan, and I don't know if Jesse, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, all right. So Jesse's on board with that view.
Absolutely. So
this week we all share that view it worked well. Everyone's sad about it, of course.
I wasn't actually sure if you liked the episode at first, Patrick.
I really liked this episode. I thought it was really good. Again, little derivative in terms of aliens. Yeah. There's a couple parts that were underdeveloped, but I thought they were worth discussing, but they are minor nitpicks. I don't think they're really huge problems. But we do want to present some of the other views, right? So there's a whole nother group of people.
Oh, those people
that are pissed off that they killed Hemmer.
Of course he'll be.
Well, sure,
and that's
man.
part of the fun of it.
And he's
a good dude.
Yeah, because he's a really great character. I think universally people really liked him, and that's why the response has been so strong. Now, there's also a segment of people, and I might fall into this category, who don't think Hemmer is actually totally dead. Because he's an Andorian, and specifically an Enar from the frozen wastelands of Andoria, which is already a frozen wasteland shit planet.
Oh, so maybe like when he was saying like, just like Andoria, he was saying that kind of as foreshadowing to say like, I could probably survive through this.
Well, that's the suggestion. The suggestion is that he's well adapted to this cold weather. We know the Gorn babies and eggs don't like the cold weather.
They're just gonna go.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even fucking think about that.
He might go into some sort of hibernation mode or something, and then he might wake up, and maybe there's some native people there that we don't know about, and there's some like alien. Like there's like a super easy path. Like here's the thing: you can always bring a character back, right? They brought back they brought back Tasha Yar twice in different ways, in completely ludicrous ways. No, I mean, well, you know what I'm saying. Like the point is that was. It was completely ludicrous how they did it, and it still totally worked, and it still totally made sense in the sci-fi Star Trek way with Yesterday's Enterprise and all that, right? This doesn't even require that. This has a very obvious path to Hemmer is if not fine, somebody helps him out or he helps himself out. And then he could have a whole fucking episode, which is the Hemmer episode could be him waking up on this planet and walking around and just like surviving and having a good time doing it because he's an engineer.
Oh.
He can cobble together stuff and help. I can see that. Right. And other people have suggested similar types of things where there's a plausible way to bring him back in a way that does not negate the power that his death had here.
You know, and that cold thing. And when you mentioned the cold thing, I had not considered that. And now that I think of it, it totally would make sense for them to like have the cold be their weakness. To like, because you could look at the cold
and they're lizards, right? They're lizards, so it also makes sense.
Reptiles,
right, as a lizard, and it also sort of helped give him a way to defeat the Gorn, but it also could have this other effect of allowing Hemmer to come back. So the thing is for people who, if he did die for realsies, people who didn't like that, I can totally see that.
Sure.
But because sometimes when characters die, it just feels meaningless. The thing about Hemmer's death, quote unquote, is it felt like it had meaning.
I'm bringing Dan onto my side.
Yeah, I know. I'm starting to be convinced. There's other shows where characters have died and people are like, fuck this show. They're just killing people. I'm not talking about Game of Thrones. I'm talking about like...
Nobody said you were. You're the one who said that.
I know. I was just thinking like it sounded like I would be obviously talking about Game of Thrones, but I wasn't.
Well, that's the show where people keep bouncing back.
I can see how some people might get irritated with a character dying and just being like, oh, they just did that for shock value. But with Hemmer's character, it actually had a purpose, which was for horror. But
however, there is another perspective that I think is very important to point out, because this has been a discussion on a lot of websites, Reddit, Facebook, and all that. There are a number of people, viewers with disabilities, who really were so excited to have.
That's a good point.
Another character, similar to Geordi, was somebody who was a character who had disabilities. Although in this case, not only do we have a character who is sightless, but the actor who plays the character. So it's sort of a double form of representation.
I did not know that.
Yeah, the actor himself is sightless, and the character is sightless.
His
right?
name is Bob Dobulus.
No,
I'm sorry.
Bob Dabalina.
I just made that.
Bob Dabalina.
I had nothing to say. I ruined
No, Bruce Horak is his name. Right. Bruce Horak. So that is, I think it's an important perspective, because there has been a consistent issue in film, which is it used to be prevalent to kill off the lady. Right? Kill off the wife, the girlfriend, whatever. That's what drove the drama. You kill off somebody's family, their wife or kids. And then in more recent years, it was always kill the gay person.
I just want my kids
kill
back.
the LGBTQ plus etc. person. And that's where the drama comes, right? And it's called fridging, I think. I think they call it fridging, where you drive the drama for a male, often white male character forward by killing a woman, an LGBT.
You're really having problems with that.
Well, it's because Pride Month is over as of today, and I can't say the letters anymore. But yeah, if you that's that form of fridging. This is now doing it with somebody, with a character who is beloved. People really liked him, and they liked the representation that he offered. And whether or not, I'm sure it was not intended by the author, by the writers. However, intentions are neither here nor there, because people's experiences are driven by, their biases and stuff like that. So maybe they didn't consider the fact that this might concern a certain segment of the audience that is interested in making sure that you do have this type of representation and understands the value that this representation gives to folks. Right. And they had a similar issue though. And we might be dealing with something similar here, where in Discovery, you'll recall that they killed Culber. Culber brutally died.
Yeah, man.
And people were like, you're killing the gays again, killing the gays to cause drama. That's not cool.
Clem Fandango.
Yeah, exactly. Clem Fandango broke his neck. The producers, or at least the upper level producers of Star Trek, know that this has been an issue in the past. So it may reduce the sting a bit if it turns out Hemmer is not in fact dead. but it doesn't completely eliminate the problem. Now, I think that if you try to, there's no way to really be objective, but if you try to situate yourself somewhat objectively in terms of the plot, like you said, Dan, unlike Culber's death, Hemmer's death seemed to be a little bit more significant. Culber died in, a pretty fucked up way, and it was meant just to move the plot forward. Right. And this, yes, it moves Uhura's arc forward a little.
Many wacky things that was happening.
But he saved, he saved the ship, right? It was a sacrifice. He made a willing sacrifice to save the ship. He had agency in the decision. He wasn't lying down in a medical bed and getting his neck snapped by somebody. He had agency in this. So I think already that is a better way to approach it. And it had this important impact on Uhura.
Okay, yeah, you were talking about Hemmer. Okay, I thought we were talking about Culber for some reason.
No, Culber Culber's the one where it's a more meaningless death. It is very mechanic-y, right?
And then Hemmer not only saved the ship, but there was they were building this relationship between him and Uhura, so that when he finally does, get maybe dead, and he's like,
it definitely influences her.
Because it's not just saving the ship, but like he also builds up this relationship with Uhura that, like you're saying,
he saves Uhura,
causes her to, join Starfleet. So it was kind of building throughout the season.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
and
100%.
I guess this would explain maybe why he wasn't in a few episodes. Maybe they just didn't want to commit too much time because there was several episodes they skipped with him.
I think what we'll find out in some future Star Trek compendium, behind the scenes stuff, some more of the details. I think a lot of what we saw in terms of characters popping in and out really can just be attributed to the COVID guidelines. Just the difficulty of handling even one extra person at a time adds problems. And when you think about it with Hemmer, when it's got to take 3-4 hours or something to put that makeup on.
Yeah.
That's an added factor just from a production standpoint. So I can understand, there were episodes that didn't have Uhura, episodes that didn't have Hemmer. You can understand where it's like, all right, there's some limitations. Hopefully with season 2, they dealt with fewer of those limitations. And so that's not such a big deal. So I don't know. It'll be real interesting to see if Hemmer comes back. It's fine if he doesn't.
Definitely.
If he's the Tasha Yar of this season,
is he the Tasha Yar or is he the Doctor?
Tasha Yar,
but I think
has
he's coming
some
back.
Specific behind the scenes stuff going on though, as to why she left.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So, yeah. As I recall,
got killed by an oil slick.
Yeah,
wasn't she supposed to be? She auditioned for the part of Troy and vice versa or something.
I think so. Yeah. I think there was a couple of things like that, but and it was the 80s. There's all sorts of fucked up behind the scenes stuff going on.
The 80s was a horrible time.
Do you think they did cocaine behind the scenes in TNG ever?
And much worse.
I'm sure they had their fun. I don't know exactly how they had it, but I'm sure they had their fun.
Cocaine. You think Miami Vice? I bet Miami
had a bunch
Vice
of brownies.
did cocaine.
Coffee.
Yeah, Miami Vice was a documentary. It wasn't
Yeah.
It wasn't a TV show. They were just filming people doing cocaine and chasing each other. Like the cops were doing cocaine and the criminals were doing cocaine. That's the way that
Don Johnson.
Yeah, that's how the 1980s worked. Any other points about Hemmer's death, or should we move along to our odds and ends? All right, I'll take that as an indication that we are all set to move along to the odds and ends section of the radio program that you're listening to now.
The radio. Tune in.
Yeah.
I think they've already tuned.
They've already tuned in, and they're
Don't
listening.
tune out. Don't switch that dial.
This is got to be. This is one of those podcasts where, like, how some people listen to their podcasts at like double speed or 3 times the speed. Probably doesn't work with ours. I mean, we've been pretty mature and sedate this episode, unusually so, I'd say. Yeah. So it might work for this week's episode, but if you're one of the insane people who decides to start listening to a podcast 9 episodes into a season, then yeah, this is a warning to you. Also, this is a silly podcast. Normally, we've been a little less silly this week, but normally
I've been rather silly.
Yeah, we try to sneak in some clever and insightful points, here and there, in the spoonful of sugar.
I just try to be silly.
Of silliness and absurdity.
Mostly we just act goofy and have funny voices.
What is it? They come at night.
You have all sorts of funny
mostly.
voices.
What does Newt say in Aliens? Mostly. They come in.
Newt saying mucilix? What?
Yeah, that's what it is. All right,
You're making me hungry.
Let's start the odds and ends with Dan's list of odds and ends that he sent us.
Dan's
when
bits.
he did not think he would be live, and then we can gird that, Jesse, you and I, with any additional.
You can dissect
gird that. Don't gird that
with our invective.
Buttress it. Oh, there's that train again.
I don't know if you can hear in the background.
Is that a monster from New Mexico?
There's a New Mexican train monster. And it comes by delivering New Mexican lobsters.
Oh, yeah.
I actually don't know what's on it. But something's delivering those New Mexican lobsters from the New Mexican lighthouses. That's where they raise the New Mexican lobsters.
Do you think he was in Maine?
New Mexican lighthouses. So
I'm going to guess he was in Maine with all this lobster and lighthouse talk.
I like when Lon sat down to eat the food, and she's like, "I'm not hungry." And they're like, "Gotta try those eggs." And when I was like, "Gotta eat those eggs. They're delicious." Ooh. And I don't know why, but I really liked it when Mbenga chimed in. He was like, "And the waffles."
Yeah, I don't know. I like that too.
It was like he was really digging on those waffles.
Can we pause it a minute?
And I was like, I was into that for some reason.
One miniature point. Like when they first showed all the food, I didn't see an omelet, a waffle, or bacon. I saw like all kinds of like pastries and.
Well, it looked like a quiche or something.
There was maybe some kind of quiche.
I did see a waffle on
Mbenga's
plate. If in the background, it was a little blurry, but he had a waffle. Yeah, but
the food in the show is a little bit more down to earth. That's not a good or bad thing, but usually in Star Trek, the food is like this multicolored.
Oh yeah, it looks like some kind of crazy ambrosia fruit or something.
Yeah, just some wild shit, man, or some gawk.
Yeah. All right. Let's go.
Or gawk. Yeah.
Continue the recording.
Keep it rolling.
I want to learn more about these Sombra class ships. Those sound cool.
What?
Pike called Hem.
That's that other ship.
That was fun. That won't be happening anymore.
Jesus Christ. But about the class of ship, what is it? Sombra class?
Sombra, I think.
Sombra?
Sombrero?
Yeah, the Sombra class, I wanted to comment on this because it was...
Yeah, it's Sombra.
Sombra. All right, Sombra class. What was the name of the ship? The Peregrine or something like
Peregrine.
that? The Peregrine. All right.
Which is a wandering animal.
And a hobbit.
Isn't a peregrine, isn't a raptor? Falcon? Peregrine falcon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, okay, the point I wanted to make was that this show is a high-budget modern television show. It's basically prestige TV. You can debate the category, but that's the budget levels we're talking about, right? They have highly skilled production design. They have access to the volume and all sorts of other...
We have highly skilled production design.
Yes, we do, but they even more so, even slightly more so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. Yes. I was just saying.
What I'm saying is they have the capacity, as we've seen in Discovery and Picard and in Strange New Worlds, they can create the wildest, strangest alien sets and alien landscapes and all this stuff.
That blue dude was pretty crazy.
Which makes me love that what I can only interpret is a conscious decision for vibe purposes, that they're doing this thing where they
totally vibe, man.
They have like the TOS TNG style where it's like, oh, that's just the same type of ship. So when we beam over there, it's going to look very similar to the ship we're on. And the hallways will look very similar because it's a similar type of ship. And that's the classic thing they used to do in TOS in particular all the time for budget reasons.
The ships all kind of look the same.
They had to just redress stuff. Even in the movies, they did that to a certain extent, right? So they don't have to do that here. Right? I'm sure it saves them a little money to do it, but they don't have to do it. If they wanted to have a totally different ship design, they could do it. I think they're choosing.
But that's not how Starfleet has ever really. They've always just done it like it's all. There's like the saucers and the.
But the reason they've done it is because it's cheaper to do.
No, yeah, right? No, I know what you're saying.
And that's what's cool about that. They don't have to do it, and they're still doing it because it gives you some of that classic vibe.
Well, they have that whole thing at the beginning, like where like the ship zooms around and it's supposed to be like, this is classic Star Trek.
Yeah.
They have like the old kind of badge and
they're all like, that ship is based on, they use the same parts as a Constitution class. It's like, yeah, it looks the same fucking ship. All right.
It's usually after an iCarly commercial, but this time there was no iCarly commercial.
Yeah.
Did everybody notice that?
I had a different commercial.
I didn't have any commercial. It went
I
right
didn't have
into
any
it.
commercials either.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah,
No,
I
it
had
little intro
it
thing.
went right to the fucking action, man.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep playing.
I like when Lon was when that Buckley came up and for the first time and
Real quick, I had a commercial for Sonic 2.
Oh,
I was trying to remember. It was for Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Oh yeah,
movie-
sometimes there is one. I'm sorry,
I saw that
forgot,
movie in the theater, but yeah. So actually, I'd be interested if you
when I'm watching TNG.
for our international folks. I would be interested to see if they're first of all if they're showing you these commercials. It's a slightly aggravating thing. I'm not going to complain too much. I'm paying for Paramount Plus. I find it a little annoying that when I turn on my TV show, usually have to watch a commercial for something else. And then I have to also watch the whole the Paramount thing, the Paramount logo. It's his own, but anyway, I
Agreed.
I digress.
Lon was like, "Uhura, do something." She's like, "That's not how linguistics works." That was pretty funny. I was into that in a big way. Let's see. I already talked about how Gorn babies eat each other. Oh yeah. There was a sign where like Hemmer could smell blood. Hemmer was like, I smell blood. It reminded me of that scene in Lord of the Rings where he was like, where that orc was like, man flesh. Or was it an Urukai? Can't remember.
Urukai,
Like,
it's just
I
a type of
smell
word.
man flesh or something. Oh yeah, got to talk about Sam Kirk.
Sam Gamgee?
Flesh is on the
He
menu.
is like, he's almost, I think we talked about this before, where he is like a red shirt, except
Yeah.
he is like a red shirt, but he's also more specifically like that character in the movie that always dies, that sort of smart ass or like
Except he's a
whiny
blue
or
shirt.
freaking out character in a movie that you know they're gonna die at some point. Kind of like Bill Paxton in
Game over, man.
Was that an Alien when he said, was that Bill Paxton? He was like, game over, man. Game over, you know, or a Terminator or whatever. He was in that too.
True
But,
Lies.
like characters, it's the characteristics that movie characters who have to die have. But it's kind of a step up from the red shirts because we get to learn about him. You know, it's not like the red shirts who just get killed off and we maybe get like a minute of them. He also was kind of,
They're avoiding like red shirts. Like a yellow shirt died and a blue shirt died.
Yeah, and what we talked about, I think it was Children of the Comet. In that episode, we discussed that Sam Kirk kind of is like the regenerating red shirt.
Yeah.
Right? You can fuck him up a little bit, but then, you know.
Yeah, he's just getting like a little fucked up.
You get healed later. And
maybe that's the deal with that guy.
Regenerating red shirt.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
was kind of specious. He called Spock a pointy-eared computer. That was kind of messed up.
Fucked up.
Pike has poor password security.
Yeah.
246810. And apparently now Vulcans also have an incantation to summon the power of anger in emergencies, which was
Okay. Did Spock say something?
He said something mysterious.
Yeah,
like that.
I was wondering if he was just like, because I hadn't thought of it as an incantation, but now it kind of does seem like that, doesn't it?
All their janks.
I just thought he was like
magical.
mumbling to himself in Vulcan about being all bitter or something, clenching his fist, and then yeah. Anyway.
It sounded like it had to precipitate all that anger. He was doing something.
He
to
went
channel
full
himself.
Vulcan.
Yeah, I agree as well. All right, let's see.
which was pretty wild too. So that's signing off. I better go, and so I can catch that
That's all you're
catch that New Mexican lobster train.
Monsters.
It's coming from the lighthouse, so I'm going to be dropped off in
it's
a
creeping
New
me
Mexican other thing that lives in New Mexico, like a
sarlacc?
tree, a New Mexican kayak tree.
I was like, what are you
I'm going to take the New Mexican kayak. I'm going to take the New Mexican train from the lighthouse.
Kayak is not
carrying
a
the
good
lobsters
clue
to the
because-
New Mexican kayak tree.
We got like
Okay.
kayaks everywhere.
Signing out. Bye. Great episode. I was that one was pretty. That was good. It was like
you were
made
signing
me
out.
feel sad, but it also made me feel excited. But I appreciated it. You know, it was solid stuff.
I think you missed the part where I was mentioning that the lobsters are actually raised in the New Mexican
Sorry about
lighthouses.
that. Yes. Okay.
So that
I got
completed the.
All right.
I got that.
It would have made more sense. If
You
got
said that.
part.
I heard that part.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Good. So we got all that.
It was one of the things.
About the red shirts, which I mean, we use the term generically, of
Red
course.
shirts.
It was a blue and a yellow shirt in this case, but I fully expected when we were introduced to Cadet Chia and Lieutenant Dookie.
Chia.
I think her name is Cadet Chia.
Yeah,
Like Chia
something
Pet?
like that.
Yes, like Chia
or
Pet.
Gia.
I wouldn't say that joke around her or her family.
Yeah.
Um,
Gia.
when they introduced these characters, I was like, oh, they must be they're gonna die.
Lieutenant Chad.
They're teaching us about these two characters, and they're giving us like character moments. The Lieutenant Dookie is all absent-minded, zaps his arm like a dumbass.
Does he fall down a Jeffries tube or something?
Chia seems all sprightly, and you're just like, oh, she has such a great future ahead of her, which means she's gonna die.
That sounds like such a doofy way to die. It's like, oh, he fell down a Jeffries tube.
Wasn't it like he got zapped by like he brushed up against some sort of like exposed conduit or something.
Oh, okay.
Something weird in his arm.
He was in a conduit.
Yeah, because they commented, they said like if the ship's power was on, you would have been fried. Anyway,
and then the blue shirt woman, she just happened to be too close to the monsters.
Yeah. Well, she was being helpful. She's
she
like
was
a helpful
helpful.
Starfleet person.
She was a science officer.
And I
totally unfair.
I expected them to die, but I also now having seen the episode, it does make sense narratively to throw us off the trail a little bit, because when those people die, you think, okay, the people who are going to die this episode have died, right? That's the takeaway. That's what you're meant to kind of feel. It's sort of like the trick they did in Star Trek II, where they distracted from Spock's death by having the sort of the Kobayashi Maru simulation with a bunch of people dying at the front, right? You know, I have no comment beyond that other than it was just like I knew those people were toast. I thought it was effective. I felt bad for them when they died. They made us care about both characters to some degree or another. They humanized the characters. So well done. Well done. You made us feel bad in a whole host of ways this week.
Bravo, Star
Well
Trek.
done. You made me feel bad.
Yeah.
Bravo, Star Trek.
I'm trying to find the part where Spock was. When did he use anger? He used it to kill a Gorn or something. What did he use anger on?
The hull of the ship.
He just got pissed off and he knocked some ship and he
I remember
grabbed
I saw
yeah,
that,
you're
but
right.
at some
all
point
scary
he
like
actually used the power of anger.
No,
on something.
Dan, you're right. It was like early on because La'an was talking about how they respond to aggression, how they're basically baited by aggression. If you're aggressive towards them, they can't help but engage you in a fight.
He was getting tough and he had that zap stick.
Yeah,
thing.
he was using the Buckley's.
That's right.
Zap
Buckley
wand.
Who is Buckley again?
He's the blue alien guy.
His name was Buckley?
Well, that's what the little girl Oriana called him.
Oh, okay.
She said that. Yeah, it's
Somehow
like
I missed that.
yeah. I mean, you know, it was a brief exchange.
I miss a lot of stuff.
Hey, who's this? Hey,
You're Buckley from King of the
Buckley,
Hill.
exactly.
Yeah. Played by I forget his name. Oh man, forget that guy's name.
Yeah.
Maybe because everything does feel so good. No, that's not it.
All right, well, that's all the odds and ends I have. Any other odds and ends floating around out there, Jesse? Any odd or end?
Fight it,
don't
Spock.
think
Make it
so.
angry. The rage that is in my thoughts, I let into my heart. See, that's what Spock said.
All right.
He goes, the rage that is in my thoughts, I let into my heart. So he's like channeling. Spock is channeling the anger. It's his incantation.
All right.
He should have said it in Vulcan. That would have been more effective.
I can
or
buy
not.
that.
I don't
can
care.
buy- I honestly didn't hear any of those lines.
I liked when Spock was doing the dishes after their happening banquet. There.
The whole meal thing was great.
That was
Captain
great,
Pike
yeah.
clicking Daddy Pike, clicking the.
Oh yeah,
Clicking the-
yeah,
clicking the
those
thing.
tongues.
I do
yeah,
that
it's
shit all the time.
Everybody goes before we get into the station
Spock
wagon.
looked like
and
he was
Spock's
about to
all like
channel-
station wagon. What?
Yeah.
Spock looked like he was about to channel some rage when Pike had him do the dishes.
And
It
he
was
had he put on a little smock thing.
Is a Spock smock?
Smock. All right. I think that does it for us
Yeah.
this week.
We've got to the Spock smock. and
We're
it's all
very
over.
much looking forward to next week's season finale of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Is it called the ultimate? Does that term apply?
Huh? Yeah, it's the ultimate
It
episode.
is the ultimate.
But nobody calls it that.
episode.
I mean, you can call it.
I'm
maybe-
gonna call it that, motherfucker.
because
No, but I'm
for
saying like
colloquial
people say penultimate.
Yeah, but for colloquial reasons, Dan, I will reserve calling it the ultimate episode until I've seen it. If it is the ultimate episode in the colloquial sense of the term ultimate, I'm comfortable calling it ultimate. Nobody is going to confuse when I say refer to something as penultimate or anti-penultimate. They're not going to think I mean is like rad, right? Because what if next week's episode's a total
like-
shit show? What if it sucks balls? What then?
Ultimate.
I don't want to call it ultimate and have people confused. I'll call it the series
Mega.
season finale, right?
You're right.
That episode was
Communication,
mega.
words in any form, visual or audio, is meant to convey a message. So
And it's-
even though the definitions may mean one thing, it's not always the clearest way of expressing.
And context is king in this case, as it happens.
That's your favorite thing to say.
No, it's not. Quit saying.
He likes to say the secrets in the sauce.
Yeah, I do like to say the secrets in the sauce. Yeah. All right. So next week's episode, the season finale is called "A Quality of Mercy."
Mercy.
I've seen the preview.
Have mercy.
You can go check out the preview if you want, but otherwise
That's
we're
from Full House.
very much looking forward to talking about that episode. And after that, they haven't announced what comes next. Everyone's assuming we'll get Lower Decks later in the summer, maybe in August, but it looks like we may actually
talk about a Voyager episode.
We might have a brief break, so we can go back to talking about some random Star Trek episodes, or maybe we'll do a random Star Trek topic,
a movie
of some sort. We could do like a call and advice show where we get advice letters from Star Trek characters and we give them advice on how to resolve their situation. Like, let's say Loxana Troy writes in and says she's fallen in love with a Jello man. And
a Jello man.
Yeah, because she's all like into Odo in that one episode
Jello
of Deep Space
Man.
Nine. Like, what do I do? The Jello man.
Well, do you have any peanut butter?
I think that's offensive to call Odo a Jello man.
Yeah, well, what are you gonna do? He joined the Great Link, so
yeah.
I don't know. All right. No Odo hate here. I love Odo. All right. So,
Galactic Space
If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can, of course, email us if you're into that at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com. However, if you really want to interact with us in a fun and public way, follow us and comment and write to us on Twitter at It's Got Star Trek. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, and throw the podcast up on YouTube, so you can check out and subscribe and like and subscribe, all that shit. That'd be fantastic.
Like it.
If you want to hear some somewhat more coherent analysis, there are plenty of other Star Trek podcasts
I think there's
out
a
there.
lot. Yeah.
There's Open Pike Night is fantastic. Strange New Pod is really good. There's a million of them. Go check them out. But definitely follow us on Twitter. That's a good way to get to us. And,
Funniest Frontier.
Funnest Frontier. Yeah, he doesn't currently have a podcast, but
shit.
Funnest Frontier is an excellent person to follow on Twitter. Otherwise, Apple Podcasts and Google and all that. You can get us wherever. So if you're listening to us on the website or something, you can click,
it's everywhere.
Click one of the easy little links on the website. Oh yeah, the website is www.itsgotstartrek.com.
It's taken over.
And check it out. There's some useful stuff there that you might like.
What are you worried about?
Yeah, what are you worried about? All right.
You can't stop us.
Until next week.
You can't stop us.
We hope you all live for a long time and make a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, be successful.
I think we're gonna need it in the future. Make as much money as you can. All right.
I'm sticking my middle finger
be rough,
up right
dude.
now.
Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Oh no, not again.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal. Send me a kiss, my wire. Baby, my heart's on fire. If you refuse me, honey, you lose me. Then you'll be left alone. Oh, baby, telephone and tell me I'm your own.
Check, please.